The Shadow's Legacy. In the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, Elias Thorne stood frozen on the rain-slicked sidewalk, his heart pounding like a war drum. The envelope in his hand was unmarked, slipped under his apartment door while he slept. Inside, a single photograph. Him as a child, laughing in his grandfather's arms, but with a shadowy figure lurking in the background, a figure that hadn't been there in the original. Scrawled on the back in elegant, archaic script, "Your turn, firstborn. I've waited long enough." The rain blurred the ink, but not the chill that seeped into his bones. This wasn't a prank. This was the inheritance he'd always dreaded, the one that came not with wealth or heirlooms, but with an enemy older than memory itself. Elias crumpled the photo and shoved it into his pocket, glancing over his shoulder at the empty street. The city of Eldridge pulsed around him, oblivious to the ancient grudge that had just reignited. He knew the stories, whispered by his father on stormy nights, a family curse, not of ghosts or plagues, but of a living, breathing adversary, an entity that wore human faces like masks, ageless and unrelenting, bound by some forgotten pact to destroy the firstborn of each Thorne generation. His great-grandfather had bankrupted it in a ruthless business war. His grandfather had unearthed its hidden crimes and dragged it into the light of justice. Now, at 32, Elias was the next in line. But unlike his ancestors, he wasn't a tycoon or a detective. He was just a history professor, armed with books and skepticism. Or so he thought. As he hurried home, the hook sank deeper. This nemesis wasn't a mindless beast. It was clever, patient, a master of shadows and secrets. And it had already begun its game. Whispers from the past. Elias Thorne's life had always been a careful balance of academia and avoidance. Growing up in the sprawling Thorne estate on the outskirts of Eldridge, he'd heard the tales from his father, Marcus, who had somehow escaped the curse, or so it seemed. Marcus wasn't the firstborn. That burden had fallen to Elias's uncle, who died young in a mysterious accident. But the family lore was clear. The nemesis targeted only the eldest child, weaving misfortune like a spider's web until ruin or death claimed them. "It started with your great-great-grandfather, Reginald Thorne," Marcus would say, his voice low as they sat by the fire. "Back in 1892, during the height of the industrial boom, Reginald was a mill owner, ruthless as they come. He crossed paths with a man, or what seemed like a man, named Victor Hale. Hale claimed to be an investor, but he was something more. Immortal, they say, cursed by some ancient right to wander, accumulating power and wealth. Reginald outmaneuvered him in a deal, stole his fortunes, left him penniless. But Hale didn't die. He vowed revenge on Reginald's line, starting with the firstborns. Elias had dismissed it as folklore, a way to explain the family's string of tragedies. His great-grandfather, Harlan Thorne, had indeed driven a shadowy figure to bankruptcy in the 1920s, exposing fraudulent schemes that toppled an empire. Harlan's journals, which Elias had pored over in college, described Hale as a devil in a three-piece suit, eyes like polished obsidian, always one step ahead until I wasn't. Harlan's victory came at a cost. Hale vanished, but not before poisoning Harlan's wells, causing a cholera outbreak that killed dozens, including Harlan's wife. Then came Elias's grandfather, Desmond. A detective by trade, Desmond uncovered Hale's crimes in the 1950s, murders disguised as accidents, embezzlements spanning decades. Desmond's exposé led to a trial where Hale, under yet another alias, was sentenced to life. But the prison burned down mysteriously, and Hale's body was never found. Desmond lived to old age, but paranoia consumed him, turning the once vibrant man into a recluse. Elias inherited the estate after his father's death 2 years ago. A heart attack, ruled natural, but Elias wondered. Now, teaching at Eldridge University, he specialized in occult history, ironically drawn to the very myths that haunted his bloodline. His students loved his lectures on eternal beings and folklore. vampires, demons, the wandering Jew. But Elias treated them as metaphors, not realities. Until the envelope. That night, back in his modest apartment downtown, he'd sold the estate to escape the ghosts. Elias spread out the family artifacts on his kitchen table. Harlan's journals, Desmond's case files, even a faded daguerreotype from Reginald's era showing a stern man with a mustache, standing triumphantly over a bankrupt competitor. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, was a tall figure in a top hat, face obscured. "Why me?" Elias muttered, pouring a scotch. He wasn't powerful like his ancestors, no empires to topple, no secrets to expose, just a quiet life of grading papers and occasional dates with colleagues. But the nemesis, Hale, if that was its true name, didn't care. It thrived on the personal, on twisting lives into knots. The phone rang, jolting him. Unknown number. He answered hesitantly. "Professor Thorne," a smooth, cultured voice said. "I've been meaning to catch up. Your lecture on immortal archetypes was enlightening, but you missed the part where some of us are real." Elias's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" A chuckle, like velvet over gravel. "An old family friend. Tell me, have you checked your bank account lately?" The line went dead. Elias logged into his online banking, heart racing. His savings, modest but hard-earned, showed a balance of 0. Transactions he didn't recognize. Transfers to offshore accounts, flagged as fraudulent but already processed. The game had begun. The first moves. The next morning, Elias woke to pounding on his door. 2 detectives stood there, badges gleaming. "Professor Thorne, we need to talk about some irregularities at the university." It turned out his email had been hacked. Messages sent in his name, soliciting bribes from students for better grades. The dean was furious. Suspension pending investigation. Elias protested his innocence, but the evidence was damning. IP addresses traced to his home. As he left the precinct, a black sedan idled across the street. The driver, a man in a tailored suit, tipped his hat. Eyes like obsidian. Hale. Elias bolted, weaving through crowds. He needed answers. Diving into his research, he revisited the family files. Harlan's journal entry from 1923. "Hale isn't human. He ages not, dies not. I found records from the 1700s, a merchant in colonial Boston, ruined by a Thorne ancestor in a land grab. That's where it started. The entity feeds on vengeance, growing stronger with each failure." Desmond's notes echoed. Exposed his killings, bodies drained of blood but not vampiric, more like essence stolen. He adapts, changes faces, but the eyes remain. Elias realized this was no random curse. The nemesis was intelligent, a strategist. It had studied him, his routines, vulnerabilities. Bankruptcy for Harlan mirrored Reginald's victory. Crimes exposed for Desmond avenged past humiliations. For Elias, it would personalize, attack his intellect, his reputation. He reached out to an old colleague, Dr. Lena Voss, an expert in paranormal psychology. Over coffee in a bustling cafe, he spilled the story. "Sounds like a tulpa," Lena said, sipping latte. "A thought form made real by belief. Or perhaps a demon bound to your line." "Whatever it is, it's real," Elias replied, showing the photo. "And it's coming for me." Lena's eyes widened. "Then fight like your ancestors. Outwit it." That night, Elias set traps. He changed all passwords, alerted the bank, hired a PI to trace the hacks, but Hale was ahead. The PI called back, "Your guy's a ghost. No records, but I found something. A holding company, Hale Enterprises, dissolved in the 20s, reformed under aliases." Elias dug deeper, using university archives, before his suspension locked him out. He found patterns. Every generation, the nemesis resurfaced with new schemes. In the 1890s, industrial sabotage. 1920s, stock manipulation. 1950s, organized crime. Now, in the digital age, it was cyber warfare. Elias's social media erupted with deepfakes, videos of him ranting conspiracy theories, alienating friends and colleagues. Isolation set in. His girlfriend, Sarah, left after he sent her cruel messages. Friends ghosted. The nemesis was dismantling his life piece by piece. One evening, as Elias walked home, a voice whispered from an alley, "Your great-grandfather thought he won, but I rebuilt, stronger." Elias spun, seeing the suited figure. "What do you want, Hale?" To end the line, but slowly, deliciously. Elias ran, but the words lingered. This was a battle of wits, across time. Unraveling threads, days blurred into weeks. Elias holed up in a motel, using cash to avoid tracking. He pored over clues, constructing a timeline. A 1790s, first recorded Thorne-Hale conflict. Elias Thorne, namesake ancestor, swindles land from a mysterious trader. 1892, Reginald bankrupts Hale's mills. 1923, Harlan exposes fraud, drives to bankruptcy again. 1957, Desmond uncovers murders, imprisons Hale, temporarily. Patterns emerged. Hale always targeted weaknesses. For Reginald, business. Harlan, finances. Desmond, law. For Elias, it was knowledge. The nemesis flooded his inbox with forged academic papers, plagiarized from his work, published under rivals' names. His reputation crumbled, but Elias fought back. He hacked back, not unlawfully, but cleverly. Using anonymous forums, he crowdsourced info on ageless entities, whispers of similar beings, the eternal adversary in folklore, a spirit of grudge. Lena helped, introducing him to a occultist network. "There's a ritual," one said, "to bind it, but you need its true name." Elias delved into genealogy sites, tracing Hale's aliases. Victor Hale, Vincent Harrow, Valeria Hunt. Gender fluid? No, adaptive. A breakthrough. An 18th century diary in a museum archive. The entity calls itself Erebus, Shadowborn, cursed by gods for hubris. Erebus. The name fit, primordial darkness in Greek myth. Armed with this, Elias set a trap. He leaked a vulnerability. A public lecture on family curses, inviting mockery. The night of the event, the auditorium filled. Elias spoke, weaving truth into fiction. Imagine an enemy that never dies, learning from each defeat. In the back row, the suited figure, eyes gleaming. After, Elias confronted it in the parking lot. "Erebus, I know you." A smile. "Knowledge is power, but application is key. Your move, Thorne." That night, Elias's motel burned. Arson. He escaped, but lost most files. The nemesis escalated. Paranoia gripped Elias. Every stranger was a potential ally of Erebus. He moved constantly, using burner phones. Lena became his anchor. We need to strike at its core. What does it fear? Exposure, Elias realized, like grandfather did. But Erebus had evolved. Digital footprints erased, identities fluid. Elias uncovered modern crimes. A tech firm, ShadowNet, linked to data breaches. CEO, Victor Hale, photo matching the entity. He infiltrated a gala, posing as a journalist. There, Erebus mingled, charming elites. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered, appearing beside him. "Neither should you, murderer." Erebus laughed. "Proof?" Elias had planted bugs, audio of confessions coerced from underlings. But Erebus anticipated. Security dragged Elias out, framing him for theft. Jail loomed, but Lena bailed him. "It's toying with you." The horror deepened. Personal. Erebus sent relics. His mother's locket lost years ago with a note. "She died because of your bloodline." Elias's mother had passed in childbirth. Coincidence or sabotage? Rage fueled him. He rallied descendants, cousins aware of the curse. Together, they pieced Erebus's empire, billions in hidden assets, influence in politics. The battle intensified. Chapter 5. The Wit of Generations. Elias devised a plan, mirror ancestors' victories but amplified. First, financial ruin. Using hackers, ethically through whistleblowers, expose ShadowNet's fraud. Stocks plummeted. Erebus retaliated. Elias's identity stolen, debts mounted. Then, crimes exposed, leaks to media. Erebus's involvement in unsolved killings, essence-draining rituals hinted. Authorities raided, but Erebus fled, leaving decoys. The climax, a confrontation in the old Thorn estate, now abandoned. Elias lured it with a surrender letter. In the dusty library, Erebus appeared. Ready to end it? Elias revealed the ritual, incantation from the diary, binding Erebus to a vessel. A struggle ensued, wits over brawn. Erebus predicted moves, but Elias used misdirection, fake relics, hidden allies. Lena chanted, cousins blocked escapes. Erebus weakened, form flickering, revealing a swirling shadow. "You can't kill me," it hissed, "but I can trap you." With the true name, Elias sealed it in an ancient urn. Silence. Epilogue. The Next Inheritance. Years later, Elias, now graying, watched his firstborn son play. The urn buried deep, but shadows linger. A letter arrived. Not over. The cycle continues. But Elias taught wits. The family endures.